The war in the Pacific was in full swing, and the Cleveland-class cruiser USS Birmingham was caught in the middle. On the afternoon of November 8, 1943, the calm waters around the island of Bougainville masked a brewing storm as Birmingham's radar screens lit up, detecting 13 Japanese enemy aircraft hurtling toward her task force. Minutes later, the first ominous sight of a circling reconnaissance Mitsubishi Betty set the stage for an upcoming clash at sea. Alarms echoed through the corridors as the crew sprang to their battle stations. At 7 p.m., Birmingham, alongside 2 other cruisers, unleashed a barrage of fire at the enemy formation, now just 18,000 yards away. The Japanese pressed on and were met by the equally fierce resolve of the Americans, who launched flares and manned their guns with steely precision. Birmingham's 20mm and 40mm gunners quickly downed an Aichi D-3A Type 99 carrier bomber, sending it crashing into the sea. Yet, a lucky bomb from the stricken plane tore a 15-foot hole in Birmingham's hull, followed by an aerial torpedo that blasted a 30-foot gash on the port bow, flooding the fuel compartments. Despite her wounds, Birmingham's crew fought valiantly, extinguishing fires and patching the ship as they shot down 6 more enemy fighters. The battle raged fiercely, with the sea transformed into a fiery cauldron of destruction. Even as a devastating explosion from a Val bomber claimed lives and inflicted injuries, Birmingham held her ground, maintaining a speed of 30 knots to break away from the never-ending swarm of enemy aircraft. The war would demand much more from USS Birmingham. Her battle had only just begun. USS Birmingham's vast service record during the Pacific theater of World War II had humble beginnings. Born as a Cleveland-class light cruiser, she was a unique vessel based on the design of its predecessor, the Brooklyn-class cruisers. It was limited in tonnage and firepower by the First London Naval Treaty of 1930, but its enhanced armor and weapons set it apart from its predecessors. Although the Clevelands used the same reduced hull as the Brooklyn cruisers, they were dramatically heavier, featuring enhanced weapons and armor. Intended initially to displace over 8,000 long tons, the start of World War II led the U.S. Navy to withdraw from the treaty and pack the Cleveland cruisers with as much firepower as possible. With this, USS Birmingham would reach a maximum weight of around 14,000 tons under full load, with a length of 610 feet, a beam of 66 feet, and a draft of 24 feet. She was powered by 4 oil-fired Babcock & Wilcox boilers, providing 100,000 shaft horsepower and allowing the cruiser to reach a maximum speed of 32.5 knots, with an approximate range of 11,000 nautical miles. Birmingham's belt armor varied in thickness from 3.5 to 5 inches, with the thickest section located amidships, where it protected the propulsion machinery sections and ammunition magazines. The deck armor was 2 inches thick, while the main battery turrets were shielded by 6.5-inch thick frontal armor and 3-inch thick side and top armor with 6-inch thick barbettes. Birmingham's main battery comprised 12 6-inch Mark 16 guns, 12 5-inch Mark 12 guns, 28 40mm Beaufort anti-aircraft guns, and 21 20mm Oerlikon anti-aircraft guns. Furthermore, Birmingham had 2 stern catapults and enough space to carry 4 float planes. She was laid down in February 1941 at a shipyard in Newport News, Virginia, and launched in March 1942. Almost a year later, in January 1943, USS Birmingham was commissioned with the Navy under Captain John Wilkes' command and dispatched for training in the Chesapeake Bay. Following her battle drills, USS Birmingham and her crew of more than 1,000 men set sail for the Mediterranean in early June 1943. She arrived at the French port of Mers el-Kabir, Algeria, later in the month to prepare for Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of the island of Sicily. Birmingham was assigned to Task Group 86-1 to commence shore bombardments with the support of light cruiser Brooklyn and destroyers Buck and Ludlow. Birmingham sortied the war zone as part of the group, decimating enemy fortifications with her main battery to pave the way for the invasion force, consisting of landing craft carrying thousands of Allied troops. Once the Salceau and Falconara attack groups secured their sectors and commenced lowering boats with men and supplies, Birmingham moved to the eastern sector to continue providing fire support against the Axis perimeter. Birmingham then launched 2 of her spotting aircraft to pinpoint the accurate location of several hostile artillery batteries near the slopes of Mount Tessucino. Her main guns then roared in fury, making quick work of the enemy positions. After 9 days of counter-battery operations and several minesweeping missions, USS Birmingham made her way to Algiers in July 1943 to refuel before crossing the Atlantic for her new assignment, the Pacific. The Cleveland-class cruiser arrived at Pearl Harbor in September 1943 and immediately joined forces with carriers Belleau Wood, Princeton, and Lexington to conduct ruthless airstrikes against Japanese positions at the islands of Makin and Tarawa. As part of this task force, Birmingham and her crew were also dispatched to tear apart enemy gunboats near these islands to clear the way for the U.S. Navy carriers and aircraft. Massive waves of destruction were synonymous with success and convinced the U.S. Navy task force to launch an even more devastating strike against Wake Island. On October 5, 1943, light cruiser Birmingham arrived off Wake Island, departing from the friendly carriers to launch an attack on the Japanese positions. As the sun rose, Birmingham dispatched 2 of her 4 spotting planes. She then commenced a deliberate and precise bombardment, targeting artillery positions, storage facilities, and an ammunition depot on the island. While targeting Japanese objectives, a Mitsubishi A6M0 swooped in, making a single pass at one of Birmingham's spotting planes. Miraculously, the Zero only managed to put 2 bullet holes in the body of the aircraft, and it safely returned to the ship. The task group withdrew the following day, reaching Pearl Harbor on October 11th. Shortly after, USS Birmingham received orders to head to the Solomon Islands. Departing Hawaii on October 21, 1943, Birmingham sailed south, arriving at Espiritu Santo in the New Hebrides in early November. The next day, she joined the fray near Bougainville, providing critical cover for a reinforcement convoy passing Mudupina Point. Birmingham escorted transports and cargo ships the following week, providing air support against enemy aircraft incursions. She resumed war patrols in the area once the troops and supplies were delivered. During the afternoon of November 8th, USS Birmingham's radar screens detected 13 enemy aircraft closing in fast. Hours later, the first Mitsubishi Betty was detected, circling the U.S. Navy formation. Moments later, the radar screens picked up a large enemy raid incoming at around 25,000 yards. USS Birmingham's alarms beeped, and the crew immediately went to their battle stations. At 7 p.m., Birmingham and 2 other cruisers opened fire at the enemy formation at around 18,000 yards. The Japanese kept pressing forward, closing in with determination. The enemy was fearless, but so were the Americans, who began launching flares of different colors to take down the enemy bombers. Birmingham's 40mm and 20mm gunners immediately took down an Aichi D-3A Type 99 carrier bomber as it flew low on the port quarter. Large holes in the airframe sent it crashing down into the water, about 750 yards off the port beam, but the damage was already done. Before blowing up, the Japanese aircraft released a lucky bomb that hit the starboard side, creating a 15-foot breach in the hull and damaging the aircraft hangar. While the crew aimed with increased desperation as the enemy aircraft took control of the air, taking down some of them, an aerial torpedo detonated on the port bow, blowing out a 30-foot hole in the hull, leading to vast flooding in the fuel oil compartments. Despite being overwhelmed by the enemy above, Birmingham's crew rushed to put out fires and patch the ship, while the rest shot down 6 approaching fighters. The sea turned into a pit of fire and devastation as Birmingham tried to escape the sights of the Japanese bombers. It was to no avail. A Val bomber was destroyed near the port beam and damaged one of the turrets, leading to another devastating explosion that claimed the lives of 2 sailors and left 32 wounded. Nonetheless, the light cruiser held her ground while maintaining a speed of 30 knots. She kept firing at the enemy until it retreated after suffering heavy losses. Injured and battered, Birmingham made her way to the Solomons for repairs. After a significant overhaul and a well-deserved rest, Birmingham returned to the combat zone in March 1944, where she began conducting shore bombardment operations against several Japanese islands. In June 1944, she steamed towards Saipan to cover minesweeping operations while conducting shore bombardment operations. While approaching Garapan, Birmingham got close to covering a beach recon mission when 6 concealed enemy batteries abruptly attacked her. The following 2 hours were grueling, with Birmingham suffering shrapnel wounds while hunting down the Japanese batteries. By the time the recon mission ended, she'd fired over 2,500 rounds of ammunition from her main guns. Birmingham returned to the combat zone the next day to provide cover for Marines dispatched to take control of the island. her guns roared in vengeance, leaving the area to conduct shore bombardment operations against Saipan and Tinian. Days later, she joined a task force dispatched to fend off a large Japanese force that was closing into the Marianas from the Philippines. She assumed a patrol station some 150 miles west of Saipan, sealing her fate as one of the many ships that would become part of the Battle of the Philippine Sea. On June 19, 1944, Birmingham assumed her battle formation to strike down enemy aircraft or ships that could reach the line, but none came that far. The next day, she screened carriers for retaliation against the Imperial Navy, but it began to retreat. With the enemy retreating, Birmingham set sail for Tinian Island for shore bombardment operations throughout July. During the last week of the month, the light cruiser returned to Saipan to support the pre-invasion bombardment. Between June and July, Birmingham had fired 7,683 6-inch and 10,875 5-inch rounds, and her work in the Pacific was not done yet. The Palau Islands lay ahead. USS Birmingham and her crew transitioned to the Palau Islands in September 1944 to carry out airstrikes in the region and assist in the preliminary bombardments of the island of Peleliu, where she also sank several enemy cargo ships. A month later, the crew conducted a series of raids in the Ryukyu Islands as part of a diversionary tactic to lure Japanese troops from the imminent invasion of Leyte Gulf in the Philippines. Upon her return, Birmingham joined the Fast Carrier Task Force to assist in the invasion of Leyte. On October 24th, the enemy launched a series of counterattacks while the light cruiser and her task force were operating off Leyte Gulf. A Japanese Yokosuka D-4Y dive bomber breached the perimeter and landed a lucky hit on USS Princeton, leading to several intense fires. Birmingham and other Allied vessels immediately rushed to the scene to support Princeton's crew putting out the fires. Birmingham dispatched 40 men to assist the crew while spraying the ship to put out the external fires. The relief effort continued throughout the day until Birmingham and the task force received reports of an upcoming Japanese strike force. A nearby submarine was detected just 2,000 yards away. Reacting swiftly, USS Birmingham pulled away from Princeton to minimize exposure. However, only one Japanese aircraft approached and did not attack. Birmingham then returned to assist with firefighting efforts in Princeton. At 3 p.m., just as she neared Princeton, a catastrophic explosion rocked the carrier when the fires reached her aft magazines. The blast obliterated much of Princeton's stern, scattering debris along Birmingham's starboard side and claiming the lives of 240 crew members while wounding 200. Despite the devastation, Birmingham's crew managed to fight onboard fires and tend to the wounded before disengaging from the badly damaged carrier. Ultimately, the decision to scuttle Princeton was made, and the survivors were taken aboard other ships. Birmingham returned to Mare Island in early November for extensive repairs and upgrades that were not finished until January 1945 for her future deployment to the volcanic island of Iwo Jima. On February 25, 1945, she joined the Navy fleet off Iwo Jima, where she began coastal bombardments of the island. During the course of 5 days, USS Birmingham shelled enemy caves to put a stop to the swarm of Japanese. Days later, USS Birmingham was called to action for the attack on Okinawa, taking part in the preparatory bombardments of the island before the Army troops and the Marines landed there. While Birmingham supported the landing force, the Japanese launched several aircraft attacks against the American fleet. The crew, already seasoned in warfare, decimated the enemy fighters with accurate anti-aircraft fire. When news of the imposing Yamato battleship leading a counterattack reached the Navy fleet, USS Birmingham became part of the defense fleet, but the Japanese strike force was dealt with before reaching the light cruiser. Nonetheless, USS Birmingham endured another ordeal the following day when she was attacked by a Nakajima Ki-43 kamikaze aircraft that struck the sickbay. Over 50 men lost their lives and 100 were left wounded. Still, the light cruiser could stay afloat to reach Guam for repairs, bringing her war service to an end after earning 8 battle stars.